What if I told you the California gold rush wasn't really about gold at all? What if I told you that the men who became truly wealthy weren't the ones frozen in rivers chasing shiny flakes, but the ones quietly watching the chaos and selling certainty to desperate people? Because the truth is uncomfortable. Most of the men who rushed west in 1849 didn't strike it rich. They were consumed by a dream that collapsed faster than it formed. Meanwhile, a smaller, smarter group built fortunes that outlived the gold rush itself. And that's the untold story. In today's video, we're uncovering how men really got rich during the 1849 gold rush, who won, who lost, and why the biggest profits had almost nothing to do with digging for gold. Before we begin, hit like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't just history. It's a lesson that still shapes how wealth is created today. It all began in January 1848. James Wilson Marshall, a carpenter working at John Sutter's sawmill along the American River, noticed shiny particles glinting in the water. Marshall suspected it was gold. Sutter confirmed it and immediately tried to keep the discovery secret. That secrecy failed almost instantly. Rumors moved faster than facts, first through nearby settlements, then across California, and finally across the country. Newspapers amplified the whispers into promises of instant wealth. By December 1848, President James K. Polk officially confirmed the discovery of gold in a speech to Congress. That single announcement turned curiosity into obsession. America erupted. Farmers abandoned crops mid-season. Craftsmen dropped tools. Former soldiers, laborers, and the unemployed sold everything they owned. Families were split apart as men chased the promise of sudden fortune. This wasn't just migration. It was the first mass venture fever in U.S. history. By 1852, roughly 250,000 people had relocated to California. Over the next 4 years, miners extracted gold worth about $400 million at the time, roughly $14 billion in today's money. More than 370 tons of gold were pulled from the earth, exceeding total global production over the previous 350 years. But before anyone even touched gold, they had to survive the journey. Getting to California was a gamble with death. Some traveled by ship around Cape Horn, 5 to 8 months of violent seas, shipwrecks, and disease. Others crossed the jungles of Panama, where tropical illnesses killed thousands. Historians estimate about 5,000 people died on that route alone. Many went overland by wagon, crossing deserts, rivers, and mountains for 4 to 6 months. Accidents, starvation, and exposure were common, and yet, people kept coming. When they arrived, they found disorder. San Francisco exploded from a town of roughly 1,000 residents to more than 25,000 by the end of 1849. Sacramento and dozens of mining camps followed the same pattern. Housing vanished. Food shortages were constant. Infrastructure barely existed. Prices became surreal. Eggs sold for $1 each. Coffee cost $5 per pound. Boots sold for $100. A simple frying pan could cost $15 at a time when the average daily wage in the eastern United States was $1. At first, gold really was easy. It lay in riverbeds, collected with wooden pans in a process known as placer mining. Men scooped sand, washed it, and watched flakes settle at the bottom. But this phase didn't last. As thousands flooded the same rivers, competition exploded. The easy gold vanished quickly. Miners were forced to dig deeper, work longer, and invest more. Sluices, rockers, and heavy tools became essential. By 1852, hydraulic mining emerged, blasting entire hillsides apart with high-pressure water. This method extracted gold efficiently, but at an enormous environmental cost. Entire landscapes were destroyed, rivers filled with debris, farmland was buried under sediment, life in the camps was brutal. Men worked from dawn until night, standing waist-deep in freezing water. Backs broke, hands split, disease spread rapidly. Food was minimal: beans, pork, cornmeal. Alcohol was everywhere. Law enforcement barely existed. Vigilante justice filled the vacuum. Conflicts were settled with fists or pistols. According to some historical estimates, more than 4,200 murders occurred during the first 5 years of the gold rush. For comparison, New York City recorded about 120 murders during the same period. Financially, the odds were terrible. On average, a miner might wash gold worth about $16 per day, but many found nothing at all. Roughly 80% of gold seekers either earned nothing or spent more on living costs than they ever made. Some returned home quietly, hiding their failure. Others never returned at all. And yet, enormous wealth was being created. Just not in the rivers. While thousands fought over claims, a smaller group noticed something obvious. Miners needed food, tools, clothing, housing, transport, land, banking, and communication. These needs were constant and far more reliable than gold. One of the earliest to understand this was Sam Brannan. Brannan owned a supply store. Instead of mining, he bought up every shovel, pan, and pickaxe he could find. Then, he famously ran through San Francisco holding a bottle of gold dust, shouting that gold had been discovered. The city panicked. The rush emptied his shelves overnight. At his peak, Brannan earned thousands of dollars per day selling supplies. He became California's first millionaire without ever digging for gold. Another man arrived selling fabric. Levi Strauss noticed miners constantly destroying their clothes. Using durable canvas originally meant for wagon covers, he sewed reinforced pants. Miners loved them. In 1873, he patented jeans with copper rivets. That company still exists today, long after the gold was gone. Land speculation created even larger fortunes. Before the rush, land sold for as little as $16. Within a year, plots in San Francisco sold for tens of thousands. Henry Meigs purchased much of the Mission District for about $100, and later sold it for roughly $1.5 million. James Lick arrived as a carpenter. He invested heavily in land when no one else wanted it. By his death in 1876, he was the richest man in California. Transportation and communication were equally powerful. Miners paid enormous sums to send letters home. Alexander Todd created an express mail service charging $1 per letter, an astronomical price at the time. Henry Wells and William Fargo expanded this idea into Wells Fargo, transporting mail, gold, and valuables. Their profits were steady, predictable, and far safer than mining. Food suppliers thrived. Philip Armour sold meat to hungry miners and later founded Armour and Company, a major meat processing giant. Collis P. Huntington began with a hardware business before becoming one of the railroad magnates who built the Transcontinental Railroad. Ironically, some of the men closest to the gold lost everything. John Sutter, on whose land gold was first discovered, watched his property destroyed by squatters. He fought for compensation for years and died poor. James Marshall, the discoverer of the gold itself, never became wealthy. He worked as a carpenter until his death. For Native Americans, the gold rush was catastrophic. California's indigenous population dropped from about 150,000 to fewer than 30,000 by 1870 due to violence, displacement, and disease. In 1851, California's governor openly declared extermination campaigns against native tribes. By the late 1850s, California had changed forever. Its population grew from about 15,000 before the rush to more than 380,000. Mining camps turned into cities. Railroads, banks, and industries replaced tents and river pans. Historians estimate that roughly 95% of all gold extracted went to just 5% of participants. But the deeper truth is this: the most reliable wealth of the gold rush had nothing to do with gold. It came from understanding human behavior, from selling certainty to people chasing miracles, from building systems instead of gambling on luck. And that pattern has repeated again and again. Oil booms, stock bubbles, internet startups, crypto manias. The crowd runs toward the shiny object. The smart money builds what the crowd needs. California still carries that DNA today. Silicon Valley exists for the same reason San Francisco exploded in 1849. People willing to risk everything gathered in one place, and the smartest among them built infrastructure instead of illusions. So the real untold story of the gold rush isn't about striking it rich. It's about perspective. Wealth didn't belong to the men who ran fastest toward the river. It belonged to the men who understood the crowd and quietly sold them shovels.